So how is Governor Lamont handling transportation and his new rollout? Let's ask two former candidates for governor, often serving as face-to-state political analysts, and we welcome them back. The mayor of Bridgeport, Democrat Joe Ganim, a 2018 candidate for governor, Republican David Stemerman. And good to see you both back here in the program.
Great to be with you.
And congrats on your re-election.
Thank you. Thanks.
So let's begin with you, Mr. Stemerman. The Republicans don't want any tolls at all. You live in a part of the state that would be tolled because there's a lot of traffic, and your highway in Greenwich needs to be redone, I-95, Merritt Parkway as well. What do you think? Can it be done without tolls?
Absolutely, it can be done. And I'm encouraged that even though the governor was broadly rebuffed with his first plan with tolls, he said this is an important issue for our state, all over the state, including in Fairfield County. The plan that his team has put out has done hard work in laying out details about it and giving some indication of how it would improve people's lives. But the piece that's missing is that it can be done without tolls. There's a Republican alternative out that I'd like to talk about further, where I think it can get done.
We'll get to that in just a moment. Mayor Ganim, what do you think?
Well,
can it be done without tolls?
Just today, hearing this Republican alternative of using the rainy day fund, I mean, it surprises me that would come from, you'd think, people with an eye towards fiscal stability and understanding. Just a few years ago, the state of Connecticut, prior to Lamont, was downgraded because of where we were financially. It impacted communities. We were downgraded by rating agencies. So I think that's the wrong plan on this. The third one that's kind of, I'm not sure it's really a plan, but other ideas of how to fund this. I think everybody agrees we need to fix the transportation system in Connecticut, the rail system, the highways, and then it comes down as the question is how do you fund it? Can tolls be sold through the legislature? When
you were candidate for governor, you talked about speeding up the rail service in Connecticut. Governor Lamont talked about that last week. What's the difference between your two proposals, what he proposed and what you proposed?
Well, the proposal here is more, I'd say, incremental improvements. And those incremental improvements are important in terms of improving certain bridges and improving the state of good repair for the rail. What's missing is the key applause line from the State of the Union, which was the 30-30-30 plan. How do you get the train from New York City to Stamford in 30 minutes, then 60 to New Haven, and an hour and a half to Hartford? Part of what I like about the Republicans' plan is they're putting in place a strategic board that's going to be collaborating with New York, that's going to look at this as what do we need to do to get all the way to Grand Central Station, and that, I think, is what we need to do in order to move it forward in that way.
Do you believe that the transportation infrastructure in our state does dissuade businesses from setting up shop in our state?
Absolutely. We had a conversation, if you don't mind me sharing it. I teach a class one night a week, and I asked if he would come and be his guest speaker. He's a phenomenal speaker. Yeah, I think it took him just to get from where you live to Bridgeport an inordinate amount of time. So I apologize for the I-95 corridor. What I'm getting to is the I-95 corridor, as an example, checkpoints or otherwise, the lack of a very functional commercial airport in, I would say, in Fairfield County. I'd argue for Sikorsky. I think it's a huge underutilized asset that could be a game changer. And train stations and the timing, you talked about it, the timing to get, even if you go on rail. So I think it is. And we've heard it from businesses. I heard it from not just Fairfield County and Bridgeport, but New Haven, and of course in the Hartford area we know the challenges as well.
We just come back to this point of can it be done with or without tolls. The first thing is I think politically tolls are dead. Since Gennaro Bizzarro was elected in an overwhelmingly Democratic district as senator in New Britain, running on no tolls, it's been clear to the Senates that they're going to lose their majority if they back tolls. What's interesting about this plan, which is a $21 billion plan, is only $2.5 billion of it come from tolls. So the Republican plan spends $18 billion, and it lives within that budget. There are some other details that need to be discussed in terms of exactly how you execute it, but the hard work has been done in terms of prioritizing projects so we can get I-95 moving faster. There's an idea about putting an airport in place. Let's, instead of bickering over the last $2 to $3 billion, let's come together, move beyond tolls, and reach a plan that everyone can agree on.
Democrats aren't exactly embracing the governor's plan. No. Do you support it 100%?
So I don't know if it's dead or not in the General Assembly. Reading the tea leaves and actually the newspapers, you'd hear from Senate leadership, and I know the senator here was very articulate about where he kind of is, and maybe other senators. There were other ideas, though, that they put out there. Forget the Republican plan of rating the rainy day fund and the governor's plan of tolls. There's also ideas of other revenue sources. Maybe people agree or disagree, but they're probably more acceptable as you talk about. People are driving through Connecticut to go to Massachusetts, free of tolls, by the way, for access to marijuana and gambling. And there's been the talk about the revenue sources that have not been, I guess, successful getting to a legislature that may be less controversial. They could add hundreds of millions of dollars. They talked about whether it's sports betting, the possibility for an expansion of the gaming or in Bridgeport, which is supported in Bridgeport. And, we're surrounded by states that have these things. So when you talk about revenue sources, I think it was Senator Looney threw this out in the newspapers. I think you got to look at all this stuff as you get towards what will be a difficult session, because whether you like to talk about it or not, it's an election year for legislators.
The governor,
having gone through a tough election, I know how these things can be. People pick at everything.
Mr. Stemerman.
Well, this is where, rather than spending all of our time talking about our differences, why don't we talk about what we agree about, which is what we've heard repeatedly, is that everyone wants these projects done. And the governor asked Ryan Drazewitz, his chief of staff, to do the hard work of identifying those projects, develop a list, what they cost, how we can finance them. Max Reese, his communications director, has put out a website so everyone can see exactly what these projects do. That's a wonderful foundation. We're only $2 to $3 billion apart from one another on a $20 billion plan. It's a 10-year strategic plan that would make tremendous progress in terms of moving our highways faster, our trains. Why not come to an agreement with a slightly scaled back plan and work out the details? And I think that can be done.
Fair.
Yeah, and look, you got to give the governor credit for moving on this issue. It's one of those things. It's easy to kind of just say, well, you know what, it didn't happen in the last session. Let's turn the page. He's putting out what I think is probably one of the premier long-term strategies that we talked about when we were all talking statewide. Where do we need to go? What's one of the things that we need to fix in Connecticut? And that is the transportation system, investment in infrastructure for improvements. But by the way, when you look at those reports, there are challenges now as to the needs of existing infrastructure, highways and so on, and train stations that need to be done.
Mayor, I want to ask you, because the governor last week mentioned improving air travel in our state, and he specifically mentioned Sikorsky Airport on the Bridgeport-Stratford line in terms of making that a little bit more accessible to perhaps bigger airlines. What do you think about that? It's
a huge game changer for all of Fairfield County. There is right now, sitting in the wings, so to speak, about an airport, a potential commercial operator that will provide commercial service out of that airport. We would love to have that be part of this plan, which I think it is, at least, and it needs to be put out there as something that, if you do that and you do the train improvements on the rail, especially in Fairfield County, you dramatically impact the ability to create more opportunities for more jobs for businesses. And I call it part of an urban strategy because it helps large cities. So I'd love to see that happen. I'm urging the governor and others to kind of support that plan.
If you had been elected, what would you be proposing right now?
Well, I'd be proposing something that was similar to the campaign for a place like Bridgeport of Plan 2028, which was to get the train there in 45 minutes. So it's to get the 30-30-30 rail plan done, to build a regional airport in Stratford, and to improve the highway capacity. And the other piece of the puzzle of how you get this done is with public-private partnerships. And part of what I also like about the Republicans' plan is it's reinstating the Strategic Transportation Board, where you look at this in terms of these bigger projects, and then how can you do them? I believe using public-private partnerships for building a new airport in Sikorsky, that's how you get these kinds of things done. In terms of executing the 30-30-30 plan, I would be looking first, how engineeringly can it be done, and then looking to the private sector to be our partner in executing it. And then for the projects like the bridges on both the rail and the road, I would hope that we would have some demonstration projects where we go side by side. We'll do it the old way, the current way with some, and we'll do it with public-private partnerships on the other side. Let's see if there's any value to the public in terms of reducing the costs, delivering the projects on time, giving a little competition to the government. All of that, I think, would be a package to improve.
It's going to be quite a year. Joe Ganim from Bridgeport, David Stemerman from Greenwich, former candidates for governor, both of you. We thank you for being in the program today. We'll have you on again.